Hi friends, how are you? My name is Nicole and this is Crimes with Cole. So, hello. How are you guys doing today? I hope you all are having a wonderful day. I hope you have had a wonderful week this far and are ready for the weekend. In today's case, we will be talking about one of Canada's youngest serial killers. And this boy was almost born with evil in his blood, and yet because of the sacrifice of one young girl, his killing spree was able to be stopped. And God bless her family and their perspective, because to lose your daughter at such a, I don't know if like random is the word I'm looking for, but there should have been no reason for this to have happened to her. So let's get into it. This is the case of Cody Legebokoff. Cody Legebokoff grew up in a town called Fort St. James, which runs off of Highway 16 in British Columbia. British Columbia is a very rural area, and this highway runs for 450.5 miles. It is so long and so isolated. There's a town probably every hour or so, and nothing but trees. Very poor lit, if it's lit at all. And because of the circumstances of this highway, it has become known as the Highway of Tears. It gained this nickname because of the amount of people that have gone missing on it. It is the absolute perfect place to leave something or someone that you don't want found, because they truly do just disappear. Now, back to the town of Fort St. James. This is a small town where Cody had grown up. He was born on January 21st, 1990, and had a rather nice family. They gave him a very comfortable lifestyle, so he didn't grow up without. He had many friends and was really good at sports, particularly ice hockey. But a lot of people noticed how he would get extremely violent during his plays and practices, so much that they would sometimes actually pull their kids off the ice, because even though he was like in the zone, he didn't know how to snap out of it and realize that it was just a game. It's not life or death. It's just a game. And that violence didn't stop at the ice hockey rink. Cody also loved to hunt. Now, I am not a hunter. I love deer meat, but I'm not hunting them. But I'm pretty sure that when you are ready to take down a deer by whichever method you choose, a gun or a bow, I think you're supposed to aim for a particular spot on the deer, because as soon as you hit them, they take off running and, they run off and die. I could be wrong, so please kindly let me know if I am. But I think you're supposed to hit them in a particular spot. And Cody, he seemed to hunt more for the thrill of killing the animals and not to really obtain the meat. After he would hit a deer and it would run off, he would follow the blood trail like you normally do. But instead of just quickly ending it for the deer, Cody always seemed to want to use his own hands to physically end the deer's life. He took pleasure in it. He took pleasure in seeing those animals suffer, which is our number one indicator that if you can harm a living animal like that, then chances are substantially high that you are willing to harm a human. After graduating high school, Cody had gone 100 miles up the infamous Highway of Tears to a city called Prince George. Cody moves in with 3 roommates, which all happen to be girls, and gets a job at the Ford dealership as a mechanic. He finds himself a girlfriend, and life really started turning into the life of a working 19-year-old. He had adapted to the city life rather quickly, and in doing so, he got caught up in the drug scene. And as he started entering into this party scene in life, he started doing more substances than he should have and got addicted very quickly. And it started to give him this double life, like he was working, getting up, going to work at the dealership. You know, he has his girlfriend and living life. But then when no one was watching, he's getting high, except he got hooked. And now his high started to take over his entire life because he can't live without it. And unfortunately, like most of us know, drugs can change someone. And sometimes it isn't for the good. Sometimes they aren't fun and exciting and a great time. Sometimes they turn into monsters. And they are the closest thing to evil that you'll see here on earth. And that was Cody. The substances he was using started making him mean. And at the rate he was using, the amount he was using, it was absolutely turning him evil into a straight monster. During this double life Cody started to live, he would spend any of his spare time on this site called Nextopia. And from my understanding, it is a Canadian social networking website. So I think it's somewhat like Facebook, where you can post pictures and like statuses of what you're doing. You can message people and just like your stereotypic social media platform, basically. It is a social media site that Cody would meet 15-year-old Loren Leslie. Loren grew up with a vision problem and was considered legally blind, but you would never know because she never let on to it. It was also said that she was special in the sense that she was extremely loving and caring at such a young age. She was very compassionate at a young age to a lot of people. She was just overall very loving. She was a very loving, kind, innocent young girl. She wasn't into mischievous things like some of us are at the age of 15. So she was on this social media site as well, and this is when she ran across the profile of Cody. The two had exchanged some messages. In the messages from the start, you can tell Cody had an agenda, and Loren had the complete opposite. Cody started talking about having relations with Loren straight from the start, but it was extremely graphic, like very detailed on what he liked and wanted, and through the messages, you can tell Loren is uncomfortable, like through her responses. She tries to briefly like touch on the comments that Cody kept making and then would try to carry it on to another direction because that wasn't what she wanted. She's a 15-year-old girl who probably hasn't been exposed to that type of activity in her life. And here he is 20 at this point, and his addiction, which I have a strong feeling probably fueled his desire to speak graphically about relations with a 15-year-old, but he somehow wooed her and convinced her to let him come pick her up and take her out. So on November 27th, Loren had told her mom she was going to see a friend, and she goes to meet Cody at the school playground. He offers to get them both some alcohol, and she's hesitant at first, but eventually she says okay. Later that night, back on the infamous Highway of Tears, there are two officers, one from Prince George and one from Vanderhoof Detachment, that were meeting on this highway. And ironically, at that particular location the two officers had met at, the exact time that they were there, they saw Cody whip his truck out of this remote logging road, getting back onto the main highway, fishtailing and just hitting the gas to get out of there. Naturally, the officers think something's wrong because of the manner in which he just whips out of there at such a late hour, and they go to pull him over. When they approach the truck, the driver window, they notice Cody had some blood like on the side of his chin, and they asked him, what's wrong with his face? You know, what is that on your chin? Cody replies, it's blood from a deer. I was just hunting and poaching deer. As the officers look in the truck, they notice a knife with blood on it and also a wrench with blood on it. And I've never heard of a hunter using a wrench on a deer. By this time, the officers have called him for backup, and they go back to that logging road to check it out, and what they find is a young girl whose face is so badly beaten she was unrecognizable. The only way they were able to discover who it was because of a monkey backpack that laid nearby, and in this backpack had a wallet with an ID card, and on that ID card was Loren Leslie's picture. Cody was held in custody, and while his apartment was searched, they were not expecting to discover what they did. They discovered the blood of 3 other women. Now, we're going to go a year back before all of this happened to October 9th, 2009. A local woman named Jill Stachenko was reported missing. Jill was a mother of 5 who sadly became addicted to substances, the same substances Cody was addicted to. Jill was a good person, according to her friends, and a wonderful mother before she had gotten hooked. And she truly did want to get clean so she could be the best mother for her children. It was just hard for her. I don't think she had the support that, that kind of shove to get her completely away from those who enabled or influenced her to use. Jill was found half buried in a gravel pit just outside of Prince George, and there was evidence that she had been mutilated, stabbed, beaten with a blunt object, sexually assaulted. I mean, it was a absolutely horrendous scene. They compared Jill's DNA to the blood stain found on Cody's couch, and it was a match. They believed that Jill, because of her addiction alongside with Cody and his addiction, and the fact that Cody found enjoyment in contacting sex workers, that because of those 2 things, Jill came over with some substances for her and Cody to do and partake in relations. And this is when Cody had taken her life in a very horrible, gruesome way. They think because Cody got away with this and probably enjoyed it to some extent, because, remember, he used to go hunting and he would finish off the deer with his own hands. So they think because he was able to get away with this, why not do it again? Who's going to think twice about an addict that partakes in sex work? It's sad to even say that, but I'm sure, that was his thought process, because his next victim was a woman by the name of Natasha Montgomery, who had a very similar circumstance to Jill. Natasha was a 23-year-old woman who was from a small town called Quesnel, which is about an hour and a half away from Prince George. She came from a good family, really enjoyed figure skating growing up, and like many others, when she came to Prince George and, got that different environment, she started partying a little bit. And before you know it, she got hooked on substances. And those substances sadly took over her life. And in order to still get what she needed, she had turned to sex work for supplemental income. When Natasha had gone missing 11 months after Jill had gone missing, they thought, she may resurface in a month or 2, but she never did. And so they eventually presumed her as dead. Now that they had found her DNA in Cody's apartment and on his clothing, they blue lighted the apartment and swabbed everything. And basically, pieced together that Cody must have invited her into his bedroom, attacked her there, and then chased her out to the living room and kitchen and then beat her to death. The last piece of DNA that was found in Cody's apartment belonged to a woman by the name of Cynthia Mass. Her blood was found on an axe in Cody's bedroom and also on his sock. On September 10th, 2010, Cynthia was found in a wooded park in Prince George, and Cynthia was said to be a very loving, trusting, people-pleasing type of person. She was kind of like a hippie in the sense of just being a free spirit. And sadly, like the other 2, she herself struggled with substance abuse and turned to sex work for supplemental income. They believe that his attack on Cynthia was just because he had this rage that filled him, and it's not because he had some horrible upbringing in life. I think it was just the substances he was on just kind of started turning him evil, making him angry. So this leads us up to Loren, this 15-year-old who he met online that was the complete opposite of the other 3 victims. They think that Cody just felt like, since he had gotten away with this 3 times within the last year and a half, that he was feeling confident in the fact that he kept getting away with it. He found some sort of pleasure or thrill out of taking these women's lives. During court, Cody's stance on Jill, Natasha, and Cynthia were, of course, they were users and owed money, and their dealers wanted them taken out, basically. If that is true, I don't know, but what I do know is that regardless of who wanted them taken out, whether it was their dealers or Cody, their blood was found in Cody's apartment. But he swears that there are 3 unnamed individuals that are responsible for Jill, Natasha, and Cynthia. As for Loren, his reasoning for taking her life was because he went and picked Loren up, and as they were going down this infamous highway of tears, Loren pulls out this knife and self-inflicts this harm on herself, and he felt, since she was done for, that he would put her out of her misery with a wrench. Like, what better way to help her out than to beat her face in so much you can't recognize her? Cody was convicted of 4 counts of murder on September 11th, 2014, being sentenced to a total of 25 years with no parole. A lot of people say that he shows no signs of remorse, yet he was transferred to a less secure prison, and it just raises the question of, how can you do that? How can you not see that he's just going with the flow, like following the rules to obtain the reward? As for Loren's family, I truly think it's amazing how they have taken this tragic event and see the positivity in it. It's hard. Anyone who has been through a tragic event knows you don't always see the light at the end of the tunnel when you're in the midst of the storm. But her family does. Because of their daughter's death, a serial killer was able to be captured. Like, that is their mindset. And I know they're devastated. I do. I mean, imagine losing your child to a serial killer. And because of her tragic death, he was caught. And he will now have to spend his life in prison. I think her dad said it very well when he said that, this was a bittersweet feeling. You guys will have to let me know what you think. That is all I have for today. Do you think Cody was truly an evil soul and that his substances just enhanced his evilness? Or do you think the substances were what made him evil? I don't know. You'll have to let me know what you guys think. And until next time, please remember to be safe, and I will see you then. Bye.